The year is 1610. Paris trembles under a blood-soaked sky as screams pierce the morning air. What you're about to witness is not fiction. It's one of history's most brutal executions, a spectacle so savage that witnesses vomited in the streets and fainted from sheer horror. This is the story of François Ravaillac, the man who killed a king and paid the ultimate price in the most excruciating way imaginable. His body would be torn apart, limb from limb, while he remained conscious and screaming. François Ravaillac was no ordinary criminal. Born in 1578, this failed lawyer and rejected monk lived in an age where faith and politics intertwined like serpents in a death grip. His eyes burned with religious fervor so intense it bordered on madness. He believed God himself had chosen him for a divine mission to kill King Henry IV of France. Henry IV had once been a Protestant before converting to Catholicism to secure the throne, declaring, "Paris is worth a mass." But radical Catholics never forgave this betrayal. They viewed him as a heretic wearing a crown. Ravaillac absorbed this hatred like poison. He attended secret meetings where priests preached that killing Henry IV would be divine justice. The failed monk spent hours in fevered prayer, claiming the Virgin Mary appeared to him in visions, commanding him to strike down the king. For months, Ravaillac shadowed the king through Paris like death itself, studying his routines, memorizing routes, waiting for the perfect moment. On May 14th, 1610, Henry's carriage entered the narrow Rue de la Ferronnerie and came to a complete stop, trapped behind a cart. Ravaillac approached with steady determination. Time slowed as he raised his knife, nearly a foot of sharpened steel glinting in the afternoon sun. "Down with the Huguenot!" he screamed, plunging the blade between Henry's ribs. The knife pierced the king's heart and lung. Blood erupted like a scarlet fountain. Henry IV, the man who had survived religious wars and united France, died within minutes, his last words lost in a gurgle of blood. The crowd erupted in chaos. Hands seized Ravaillac, tearing at his clothes. The mob would have killed him instantly, but royal guards intervened, not to protect him, but to preserve him for a far more terrible fate. They dragged Ravaillac to a dungeon that reeked of death and despair. French justice demanded confession, every detail of the conspiracy, every accomplice's name. They would extract these secrets through methods that would horrify modern interrogators. The rack stretched his body beyond natural limits. As the wheel turned, joints separated, with audible pops echoing through the chamber like gunshots. "Who sent you?" they demanded, as his shoulder dislocated with a sickening crack. Through tears and agony, Ravaillac maintained his story. God alone commanded the assassination. No human conspiracy existed. They crushed his legs with iron wedges, twisted his arms until shoulders separated, burned his flesh with glowing irons. For days, this medieval symphony of suffering continued. His body became a map of human agony, every inch marked by burns, cuts, and shattered bones. Yet he never changed his testimony. May 27th, 1601, Paris transformed into a massive amphitheater of bloodlust. Every street leading to the Place de Grève overflowed with spectators hungry for vengeance. This wasn't just execution. It was public demonstration of royal power designed to terrorize anyone considering harm to monarchy. The scaffold dominated the square like an altar to suffering, displaying torture instruments that would make demons weep, red-hot pincers, cauldrons of boiling lead and sulfur, and 4 powerful horses whose sole purpose was tearing human bodies apart. Ravaillac emerged in chains, so heavy they carved bloody grooves in his flesh. The crowd's roar was deafening. Thousands of voices merged into a single howl for blood. Weeks of torture had transformed him into a living skeleton, wrapped in infected skin, fingers mangled to stumps, legs twisted at impossible angles. Yet his eyes still burned with fanatic fire. The executioner approached, carrying the same knife Ravaillac used to murder Henry IV, now heated, cherry red in a furnace. By royal decree, he announced, the hand that struck down our sovereign shall be burned away with its own weapon. They forced Ravaillaic's right hand onto a wooden block. The glowing blade descended with an audible hiss. Skin bubbled and blackened instantly. The stench of burning flesh filled the air, like unholy incense. Ravaillaic's scream was inhuman, a sound from hell's deepest pit. The red-hot knife seared through muscle and tendon, cauterizing as it cut. To prevent quick death, they wanted him conscious for every moment. The hand fell with a wet thud as the crowd exploded in cheers. 4 cauldrons bubbled around the scaffold: molten lead, boiling sulfur, scalding oil, melted wax. These were tools of systematic flesh destruction, designed to maximize agony while preserving life. Red-hot pincers clamped onto Ravaillaic's chest, with sounds like meat hitting hot skillets. Flesh sizzled and smoked as iron burned through skin and muscle. Chunks of cooked meat were torn away, leaving wounds that steamed in morning air. More pincers seized his arms, legs, back, each tearing away pieces of the living man. With surgical precision, they avoided vital organs, ensuring consciousness throughout the ordeal. After each fresh removal, they poured molten metals into wounds. Lead hissed and bubbled, meeting raw tissue. Sulfur burned with acrid smoke. Boiling oil penetrated muscle and bone, cooking him from within. Zephyros' screams evolved beyond human recognition, the sounds of ultimate agony. Yet still he lived, still he suffered. 4 war horses, each over 1,000 pounds of pure muscle, were positioned at the scaffold's corners. Thick ropes tied to Ravaillaic's remaining limbs with anatomical precision to ensure maximum structural damage before dismemberment. The crowd pressed forward, sensing the climax. Children rode shoulders for better views. Vendors sold refreshments to spectators who'd worked up appetites watching human destruction. The atmosphere was carnival-like, a celebration of sanctioned savagery. 4 whips cracked like thunder. The horses surged forward with locomotive power. Ropes snapped taut, transforming Ravaillaic's body into the center of mechanical crucifixion designed for dismemberment. Initially, only stretching occurred, agonizing stretching, popping remaining bones from sockets like corks from bottles. His spine curved impossibly as opposing forces tried dividing him. Then separation began. His left leg tore away first, not cleanly, but with wet sounds as muscle fibers snapped individually. The right leg followed amid blood spray painting the scaffold crimson. His remaining arm held impossibly long before the socket exploded in fountains of blood and bone fragments. Even dismembered, Ravaillac refused quick death. His torso writhed on the blood-soaked scaffold, mouth opening and closing in silent screams. The crowd grew unsettled by his supernatural persistence. The executioner heated more molten lead to liquid fire. This time, instead of wounds, they poured it directly down Ravaillaic's throat. The internal burning finally accomplished what external torture couldn't, ending the life of the king killer. His dismembered remains were gathered and burned in fires visible for miles. Ashes scattered to winds, ensuring no trace remained for future inspiration or relics. The crowd dispersed, vengeance appetite finally satisfied. They had witnessed the consequences of raising hands against divinely appointed royalty. Ravaillaic's execution sent tremors throughout European courts. This wasn't just an assassin's end, it was blood-written message to every potential enemy of absolute monarchy. But the spectacle revealed disturbing truths about human nature, how easily ordinary citizens became bloodthirsty mobs, hungry for human destruction. Henry IV's assassination changed French history permanently. His death brought Marie de Medici's regency and eventually Louis XIV's absolute monarchy. Religious tensions motivating Ravaillac plagued France for decades more. His family suffered corruption of blood, children forbidden their surname, property confiscated, house demolished stone by stone. Even distant relatives bore regicide's mark. What transforms ordinary men into king killers? Ravaillaic's case provides disturbing insights into political violence patterns still relevant in our terrorism age. He displayed classic symptoms: religious obsession, bordering mental breakdown, divine vision claims, commanding voices. But was he insane, or simply products of society normalizing religious violence? 1610 France featured priests preaching heretic killing as holy duty, theological justifications for political murder. Modern psychologists identify contemporary terrorist patterns in his profile: social isolation, religious obsession, divine mission beliefs, extreme violence rationalization. The tools change, but psychological mechanisms remain consistent across centuries. Despite torture that would break most men in hours, Ravaillac never confessed conspiracy involvement. He maintained God alone commanded Henry's death. But historians remain skeptical. The assassination seemed too perfectly planned and timed for single madman work. Multiple groups wanted Henry dead. The Ultra-Catholic League never accepting his Protestant past, Spanish agents seeking French destabilization, nobles resenting absolute rule. Ravaillac's radical Catholic connections, detailed royal route knowledge, and schedule access raise unanswered questions. Perhaps most disturbing, Ravaillac might have told the truth about acting alone, not from innocence, but from manipulation so complete he genuinely believed divine rather than political inspiration. Ravaillac's story offers chilling contemporary parallels. Modern terrorists share his psychological profile, fanatics believing they serve higher purposes through violence. Like him, they endure extreme suffering for their causes, making traditional deterrence ineffective. The state response, spectacular execution terrorizing enemies, mirrors modern anti-terrorism debates. Abandoning legal norms for harsh retaliation remains tempting despite counterproductive results. His case demonstrates spiritual convictions, weaponization for extreme violence, how religious duty and criminal insanity lines blur in fanatic minds. Most relevantly, it shows how societies lose moral bearings confronting shocking violence. Ordinary people celebrating systematic human destruction. Was justice served in Ravaillac's execution? The question divides observers across 4 centuries, depending on justice definitions. Royal authority deemed his punishment necessary. Regicide demanded extraordinary response for revenge, deterrence, and power demonstration. Religious perspectives proved complicated. While supporting capital punishment for murder, many questioned extreme torture's compatibility with Christian mercy. Legally, the execution followed established treason precedents, though failure proving conspiracy through torture raised questions about excessive punishment based on suspicion rather than evidence. From emerging humanitarian perspectives, Ravaillac's treatment violated fundamental human dignity principles. No crime justifying such suffering. This viewpoint eventually drove criminal justice reforms and torture abolition. The fundamental question persists: can societies maintain moral authority employing methods mirroring condemned brutality? France 1610 demonstrated political violence consequences through spectacular violence, but arguably revealed more about state cruelty than individual evil. The scaffold where François Ravaillac died was eventually dismantled, but its shadow stretches across centuries. Every time societies choose vengeance over justice, cruelty over mercy, they rebuild that suffering platform in civilization's heart. We remember Ravaillac not for historical importance. He was ultimately a minor character, stumbling onto history's stage momentarily. We remember him because his story illuminates eternal truths about power, violence, and human capacity for both evil and cruelty. His death represents recurring societal crossroads, responding to violence with greater violence, or breaking cycles through justice tempered with mercy. France chose spectacular vengeance, satisfying mob bloodlust while failing to address political extremism's underlying causes. The screams echoing from Place de Grève weren't just individual agony, they were civilization crying out against barbarism lurking in every human heart. Perhaps most disturbing isn't his crime or punishment, but ordinary people's enthusiasm, celebrating systematic human destruction. The blood has been washed from Paris stones, but questions raised by Ravaillac's life and death remain urgent. In a world struggling with terrorism, political violence, and appropriate state power limits, his story serves as both historical warning and mirror reflecting our darkest impulses. François Ravaillac's savage execution stands as human cruelty monument, extremism danger's testament, and reminder that civilization barbarism distance measures not in miles or years, but in choices made, confronting our capacity for both justice and vengeance.